The best lawyers aren't found in the big law firms. They're found in the stories of those who left. Hello, listeners and viewers of the Sell Life for Lawyers podcast. I'm here today with Robbie Goldberg, who's the country director of LEGL, LEGL. They've come to Australia to help lawyers with their AML, anti-money laundering, and CTF needs. We're going to dig into that. But Robbie, I normally open asking lawyers, why did you become a lawyer and when did you make that decision? But for you, I thought I'd go different. When you were a little boy, did you think I'm going to grow up and become a country director to stop criminals laundering their money?
Oh, Lofty, firstly, thank you for having me. It all started when this one bully at school kept selling ice blocks for under market value, and I was very suspicious. No, actually, that was not the plan from school. I've kind of just found myself in industries that have been in interesting phases of their journey. I was at LinkedIn before passive recruiting and social selling was a thing. At Asana before work management was a well-known concept. Datadog kind of towards the beginning of the AI boom, and now LEGL. I've kept in touch with the legal industry. I studied it at university, but it's at a really interesting juncture right now, and I'm glad to be back in the industry, but it was not the plan.
Yeah. So what was it when you were sort of graduating? Was it straight to uni or did you take some time to do some other things?
I went straight into strategy consulting. I always found it interesting to kind of be able to work with multiple clients at the same time, and that's what strategy consulting did offer. But I realized very quickly that my passion lay in working with people and helping them along their transformation journey. And I got to say, I kind of enjoy expressing my viewpoint and having people buy into my vision of the way things should be done. And that's how leadership in the sales industry became my path.
Yeah. And so, because you had a big name early in your career. I'm just on your LinkedIn now. Did you just find there was too much distance between like what you're doing and actually the impact it's having with the clients?
Yeah, exactly right. So at strategy consulting firms, it was my first proper job out of uni. If we exclude my retail job to kind of pay for uni, there's obviously lots of layers of management in the hierarchy, which makes sense. I was fresh-faced out of university. I knew very little. So your work needs to be proofed, and there's a lot of checks and balances before what you think is worthy of suggesting to the client actually does get suggested to the client. And I learned a lot from that process, and I got to work with some absolutely brilliant people who I keep in my personal board of directors and network today. But I always wanted to, I guess, lead the pursuit and have my ideas be implemented when I felt particularly strongly about the way something should or shouldn't be done.
Yeah. And then and we're talking about this before you jumped on, but quite a long stint at LinkedIn itself before it became like now. It's obviously every lawyer's on there. That's where we predominantly put everything because 90% of lawyers are there. And I tell our investors all the time, if they're not on LinkedIn, they're probably not going to last as a lawyer because you've kind of got to be on there to be a professional lawyer these days. How was that? And what were the roles you had there?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot with the roles. I had 7 or 8 roles. LinkedIn was big into internal mobility. But my time at LinkedIn was split about half-half in Sydney and New York. I started selling media. So when you log onto your LinkedIn feed and you see one of 2 posts, you either see yourself, you see Lofty in your feed, or you see something that's been sponsored to you. So a company has paid to advertise given the amount of rich data LinkedIn has on its members. And I would sell that advertising, kind of being that conduit between companies and the people who they wanted to target. And it just occurred to me that if I was selling media and I was helping media campaigns, why not go to the media capital of the world, which is New York? And so LinkedIn was very generous in sending me over there, where I joined what was called the Connected Enterprise team. This is the concept that instead of selling 1 or 2 of LinkedIn solutions, you could sell the concept of the professional network more holistically. And that was a really enjoyable experience. And then after 4 or so years, it was time to come back home to Sydney.
Yeah. And so what's the biggest differences between the US market and the Australian market?
Oh, there's quite a few. The US market is obviously massive. And so when you're dealing with a company over there, especially the larger ones, it's honestly like 10 separate companies. So we work with some of the
Yeah.
large financial institutions down around Wall Street, and it's not just separate divisions and departments, it's separate businesses and brands. And so when you think that you are the account manager for one particular company, you really need to actually know multiple industries, multiple businesses, multiple stakeholders. Often you almost see yourself as an employee of your customer, helping them connect stakeholders within themselves. Australia is obviously a smaller market. We have large companies, but in general, we've got a very long tail of mid-market and SMB companies. And as you would know better than most, Lofty, we have no shortage of sole traders. A lot of people who've done their dash, they've done their stint working for large corporations and they're ready to start their own business. We have a lot of that in Australia, not as many in America. In America, the goal is to get as big as possible, as quick as possible,
Yeah.
and maybe get bought out. I haven't found that to be the case in Australia. But otherwise, there's actually quite a lot of overlap between the working culture and environment between America and Australia.
Yeah. No, and I'm finding it intriguing because we're starting to do more work in the UK, and obviously the difference, I guess it's the cultural and the entrepreneurial spirit. And the way I've looked at it is Australia seems to be the halfway point. We're not like hardcore entrepreneur, full capitalism like the US, but we're also not as sort of old school or traditional as the UK market. We're right smack bang in the middle. And I think best of both worlds. We sort of take a little bit from each and hopefully that helps. But so what led to now into legal and getting into that space and helping them effectively roll out here in Australia?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned the UK. LEGL has been a successful business in the UK since 2019, working with over 500 firms there of all shapes and sizes. And as your listeners will likely know, with new regulation coming into effect on the 1st of July with Tranche 2 through AUSTRAC, there was an almost instant product market fit between what LEGL were offering law firms in the UK and what would be valuable to law firms in Australia. So they made a decision quite quickly, obviously did their due diligence and did their research, but decided quite quickly that it made sense to roll out the LEGL product into Sydney. And it just doesn't make sense to service an Australian firm all the way from the UK, at least of all the time zone differences, but there's nuances to how firms like being serviced down here. So they set up shop. And one of our star GTM reps, her name is Olivia Goody, shout out to Olivia. She came about a year ago to scope out the market, network, understand what elements of the LEGL product needed to be tweaked for Australia. And then later in the year, so a few months ago now, I was hired as the country director to roll out the rest of the team, hire a go-to-market team, and service our customers down here so that they can be compliant in time for Tranche 2 as well.
Yeah. And so from your knowledge, and I'm putting this in the comical way again, how come the UK was on top of this? They wanted to stop criminals before we did. How come Australia, the delay?
Oh, we could get into a whole political conversation here, Lofty, but FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, is a global organization, and Australia was scarily close to being on the grey list. This is a list of countries that are considered higher risk to do business with. It would have been a political nightmare and a near disaster for our economy. So we had been putting it off for a long time because no one likes at face value the sound of additional regulation. But when FATF was knocking on our door again and said, you are one of the very, very, very few countries in our membership base that are not compliant to our standards, you're very close to being on the grey list. I think our politicians realized very quickly it was time that we got on this list, and now they are rolling that out. The UK has taken this on, I think, nearly 2 decades ago. Obviously, money laundering through some of the big institutions in the UK has been an attractive venture for criminals for a long time, and we are now catching on. And it kills me to say this, Lofty, but even New Zealand has been a little bit ahead of us. New Zealand has had these laws for a little over 5 or so years, and my Kiwi friends do not miss an opportunity to remind me that we are behind in them. for all the jokes that I give them. So we finally got with the times.
Yeah. And so, so 2019, because you said it's been around a while, to get into actually the gist of what the product is, why 2019 did LEGL suddenly, because it's obviously become quite big, the more I've researched it over there, and obviously Will here, why did it suddenly have product market fit and get all these firms on board?
It's a really good question. So LEGL in its current form has been around since 2019, but our founder and CEO, Julia Selaski, brilliant woman, she has had businesses prior to LEGL, such as Crowd Justice and businesses before that, which have now become legal. But she's got a really inspiring vision, which is to enable anyone to access legal services seamlessly, conveniently, and fast. And she realized that she was able to not only turn that vision into a kind of personal mission statement, but was able to turn it into a business. And this really came to a fore during COVID. So people who thought about 2019, they might think of COVID. It was pretty much during the start of COVID. So perhaps a little bit of luck. Knowing Julia, I think it's more just brilliant timing. That when a lot of things started moving online, the ability for law firms to do due diligence became even more difficult. A lot of law firms were doing things in person, verifying identity, collecting statements, and making sure those statements weren't fraudulent. To do that online just made life for criminals even easier. And so she saw a business opportunity to allow law firms to continue operating while not hindering their client experience by allowing them to interact online.
Yeah. And so in its essence, because I'm looking on the website, you do like the core, I guess, the crux of why someone would come to you is because they need to be compliant, and that's what the legislation's saying for lawyers down under. But what exactly is the product?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I mentioned our vision to enable anyone to access legal services seamlessly, conveniently, and fast. Our mission, which is I guess a byproduct, how we achieve the vision, is to give law firms the tools to drive growth and manage that risk that we've been talking about intelligently. So the way we do that, Lofty, is essentially through an online platform. It's purely SaaS-based. It allows law firms to holistically manage the entire client lifecycle. And when I say the client lifecycle, before they actually become a client, like the onboarding element, and even once they do become a client, because law firms love repeat businesses. So we help them manage that whole lifecycle, meet regulatory requirements. And a key one is accelerate onboarding and cash flow. So obviously, AUSTRAC from the 1st of July is ensuring that law firms who provide a designated service can only provide said service once they have done their due diligence. So the faster you can onboard a client, the faster you can begin the actual work on the matter or the case, the faster you can get paid. And we also help client experience, which ultimately unlocks deeper insights into the clients themselves to help our businesses drive growth. So that's at a high level what we do. I can break that down even further, but that's kind of the pitch.
No, that's good. And so does it, the service itself, does it sort of plug into existing like practice management softwares, or is it designed to sort of overtake that, or is it an addition or like a plug-in?
Great question. I would love to say we're here to take over the world, and truth be told, it definitely will replace some solutions, but we have a lot of partners with whom we integrate. So we integrate with the main practice management systems, document management systems, because we see that as a key component to law firms being efficient. And the key element of all that, Lofty, is that when the systems talk, when you have your document management system talk to your AML and CTF provider, which also talks to your payment solution, LEGL does payments as well. When you have that much client data in the one place, the insights that you can generate from that are extremely powerful, and they ultimately help a law firm answer the question, do I want to do business with this potential client, or do I want to take on this matter if it's an existing client? Which is far more powerful than a point solution which enables a law firm to answer, is this compliant? Now, of course, we want to be able to answer that, but we want to provide business intelligence far more powerfully than that. And to do so, the integrations you mentioned are very important. The practice management systems are often considered like sort of like the backbone of a law firm, and so integrating with them is pretty key.
and then tracking that data. Yeah, okay. And then because I'm just looking through the website, like Legal Pay, Legal Assist, Legal KYB, source of funds. So effectively, it's in the digital age that we've come into. Is it a way of a lawyer being more confident, or as I don't know if there's a guarantee that the person who said they're going to foot this bill is the person footing the bill?
Yeah, let me just start off by saying there are no guarantees. I've been in the legal industry for long enough to make sure I don't promise things that are outside of my control. But you're absolutely right. So just to talk about the product for 1 second, when you do run a company report, you'll get the basics like the company information. Are there any sanctioned lists? Are they based in a country that's in any kind of gray or black list? You get all that information, and that helps you stay compliant. And that helps you ensure that your fee earners are adhering to your firm's risk policy. But beyond that, you're also going to get a lot of information like their financial probity, for instance. Are they likely to pay you? Are they likely to pay you on time? So you could have a firm or an individual who is compliant to work with them. They fit within your firm's risk appetite, and they don't appear in any sanctions list. There's no adverse media about them. They're not a politically exposed person, but they are on some kind of list, and we plug into all of them that suggests that financially they are not in the strongest position and might be likely to default on their bill, and so you might choose to not work with them. So that's our kind of philosophically, that's how we see the value of the software, not just doing a checkbox exercise, but helping businesses make smart decisions.
No, that's huge. And particularly, I mean, you know, our market, we're called the Self-Employed Lawyers League. That's a massive one that I hadn't actually thought of, because ultimately in my head, I just saw, and I'm a libertarian at heart, and I was like, government, yeah, good on yous, create another industry out of thin air by throwing regulation. Although this one, admittedly, should have happened a long time ago, because I was like, people in Australia seem to have forgotten. One of our big banks, and I think multiple, were actually publicly caught, but suddenly it just disappeared from the ether. And I'm like, no one wants to know that's happening. And if you guys can do this, but then in my mind, I was like, how is, in Australia especially, and obviously that's why he's down here, so many law firms are one or two principals. The majority, in fact, are that. They're not a big firm with a whole compliance team. And so, unfortunately, a lot of them take on work that potentially has that risk. And how are they going to do those checks? And so that's pretty cool, because that's an additional, that's a big one. Like, to not getting paid. That's why a lot of lawyers end up going, having to shut the firm, is because they had that one client that they thought wasn't a risk. So that's pretty cool.
I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. And just to give you another example to noodle over, we do get firms who look at the legal platform. They're deciding what the right AML CTF vendor is for them, and we'll pull a company report and we'll untangle a complicated company structure to help them determine who the ultimate beneficial owners are, or we will automatically read through a trust document to surface who the ultimate trustee beneficiaries are, and they'll say, Rob, you know, we can do this already. And I'll say, like, how long does this take you? And they're like, oh, okay, good point. Because to read a long, I don't know if anyone out there has read a long trust. They are pages and pages, sometimes up to hundreds of pages long, doing due diligence on a company which is actually owned by a trust, which is actually owned by a subsidiary company, which is owned by another trust, to untangle who's actually going to benefit from the work of the law firm acting on a corporate matter, takes a lot of time. And with legal, it is instant. We plug into the document verification service, ASIC, or you name it. And so for a small law firm, or especially for a sole practitioner, when you don't have your own risk and compliance team, and you are the fee earner, you are the AML compliance officer, you're also the head of HR and IT, you are everything, having something that can do it for you automatically is quite a lifesaver from what we've heard.
It's sort of, oh no, just outsourcing. It's magnificent. That's why we were very keen to start working with you. From a technical perspective, how tech savvy does someone have to do to be able to benefit and use the software?
I like that question. I'm going to break that down into two components. I'm going to break it down into the two parties who do engage with the software, which is the law firm and the law firm's client.
Yep.
So on the answer to both of them, sorry, I should have just answered your question. The answer to both of them is not tech savvy at all. It is no code, not low code, no code, plug and play. The way that you want to engage with your clients is completely in your control. So for instance, the way that you engage an overseas person looking to buy a $5 million property in Australia is going to be quite different to an elderly Australian citizen who's looking to make a will or some kind of family matter. And so the way that you engage in the documents that you request, the amount of payment that you might require upfront, it's going to be completely different for all various practices within your firm, all various departments. And you just kind of drag and drop into a workflow how you want to engage with your customer. When it comes to businesses, you simply search the business through their ABN, their ACN, or the business name, and you click run report or run sanction. So if you can use a mouse, you can use LEGL. On the customer side, as in the law firm's customer, the oldest person to complete a legal engage request was 102 years old. The average time to complete a legal engage request from soup to nuts is 16 hours, as opposed to what we hear from law firms, which was to onboard a customer prior to that would sometimes take 12 weeks. The emails back and forward, and they asked for one of the documents in person, and then the BSB was one digit short, and then they sent a photo of their passport, but it was a bit blurry. So it saves a lot of time, and because it's completely online, device agnostic, and actually walks the user through the journey, I would argue it's actually easier for a non-tech savvy person because you actually can't make mistakes. If the passport that is uploaded is insufficient in terms of its clarity, it will tell you, or it just won't even take the snapshot. Or if you are missing a digit in your postcode, it won't let you hit send. And so I would say it's just as easy for the client as well. You don't need to be tech savvy.
Yeah. Well, and then it kind of, because sometimes like platforms like this, it makes me think it's the same as when I tell someone to engage a marketing agency. Sometimes just engaging them so they ask you questions about what your workflow needs to be is so good for the business side to go, and in this one, who do I want on my books? Because it's not just about taking anyone, because ultimately you can build your reputation on the clients who are on your books very quickly, because birds of a feather flock together. So this will effectively, the notification to the client. So say I'm running the report, it sends to you and says, Robbie, please fill out what, I guess, the details, your passport, your company's. Then the notification that I get as the lawyer, does the client see any of that? Or I just see Robbie's a high risk. Turns out he's been flying over to certain countries and he's been flagged a few times. You don't get to see any of that. So I can just say, sorry, Robbie, not going to move forward.
Correct. It's the latter. The end client, the firm's client, they get a big thank you for completing these details. And then whoever is tagged as the reviewer for that particular engage request gets a notification that the document is ready to review. It's automated in a sense that LEGL will give you a suggested risk rating based on your firm's custom risk profile. Correct. However, I do want to make a distinction to all the listeners out there. We don't make the decision for you. Software never will. I think that fundamentally goes against our company's belief and what AUSTRAC believes as well, which is ultimately we provide you an unprecedented amount of information very quickly, very easily, but it's on the law firm to decide whether or not they want to take on the client and or take on the matter. Because some firms are very happy having a high risk appetite. For instance, they'll see someone who's coming from a sanctioned country and they'll say, you know what, I'm going to do thorough, enhanced due diligence. I'm going to check on this person. I'm going to meet them daily. They're going to come into the office and I'm willing to take on this work. Other firms will say, you know what, this particular matter might be clean. I'm just not even going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And so firms are going to have different policies and they can make the decision. We just provide the information.
Yeah. No, well, and I like, because it's funny, when I work in particular with criminal lawyers on how do we develop a business plan, I'm like, you guys are the most unique one, because it's not like I can tell you to go hang out at a bikie club. Although Now I'm thinking, well, if you start plugging in the data, you can actually target your marketing if you really want that sort of client, and you decide everyone deserves their defense. So you decide you want to, good on you, because presumption of innocence is a precious thing. You could actually turn the risk appetite right up and potentially get a lot of inflow of clients.
And you raise a really good point. So just to be clear, AUSTRAC has not mandated any risk appetite for particular law firms. They just want to see that your work is evidenced. So another element of the legal product is called risk assessments. It allows you to take all the information and document your work, document your thinking, so that if, and dare I say when, the auditor knocks on your door, you can evidence why you have decided to take on a particular client and the mitigation factors you had in place for how you were going to minimize the risk that any nefarious activity could actually play out, or I guess you could assist or facilitate that. They don't ban you from dealing with sanctioned countries. You just need to evidence your thinking. The one thing I will say, I forgot what you said, but like there was an earlier point you made. A lot of clients we see these days, they want to work with a firm that they know is compliant. They don't want to feel like it's risky working with a law firm that could have its doors shut the next day. And especially if it's a pretty basic matter or a basic case and it's relatively table stakes, they don't see a huge degree of variance in terms of the actual advice or I guess activity being provided by the law firm. They will defer to the firm that provides the best, I call it bedside manner for a doctor. If you're going in for a basic GP checkup and the GP is going to check your heart rate and listen to your I guess your cough or whatever it is, it's so basic. You're going to go to the doctor that has the best service, the best online booking system, the most friendly front desk person, the person who explains to you what's going on the best. And it's the same for law firms. We are seeing that the actual customer service is a key differentiator for them these days. So again, like you said, Lofty, it's not just a regulation checkbox exercise. It can be a competitive advantage for law firms who kind of see it that way.
Yeah. No, and I mean, the intro to this podcast literally is me saying the best lawyers aren't found in the big firms. They're the stories of those who left. And obviously I'm bullish on, because of these tech stacks that are now available, you can confidently say to your client, yes, I'm not pick your magic circle firm, but I've engaged all the right software. I have a tech stack that allows me to be as efficient, and then I can focus on, because I don't care if you're a massive company or a small one, everyone knows boutique service, personal service, dealing directly with the partner is great. But you're right, but for safety, sometimes it's good just to know that firm does have 100 people working on compliance, so nothing, even if it does go wrong, they're going to fix it immediately. And that's what excites me with the time and age we're in, between the AI tools, the tools like this, to be able to go, no, as one person, I can just be the best niche lawyer. And I think it's going to become more and more fine-tuned niches, that I will be Australia's best employment lawyer solely for hairdressers. And that's all I'll ever do. But you can now say, and I'm the biggest firm and I'm a firm of one. And that's what, very much excites me with this sort of technology.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head again. But by the way, I do want to know who your hairdresser is. You're always looking slick on these, Lofty. I think I need a new barber. But the reputation of a law firm is paramount, especially for small law firms. I mean, you mentioned some of our large law firms earlier. You could have a law firm with 1,000 fee owners, and if they're in the news for one bad piece of PR, it can kill the firm. So imagine if your entire firm is one person, or 5 or less people. So the reputational damage is often the bigger deterrent than any fine. Honestly, some firms we've spoken to see fines as the cost of doing business. It's the reputational risk that can cost them millions.
Yeah. And so in coming to Australia, I guess a twofold question. I mean, it's obvious why we're coming to Australia. My question, selfishly, and I can edit this if I don't like the answer, but why partner with the Cell Life to sort of help promote that?
So it's been great working with you so far. Looking forward to working with you and your firms, Lofty. We just saw so many synergies between the two companies. So I spoke about legal's mission and vision at the beginning of making law firms more successful, which is becoming increasingly difficult with a changing regulatory landscape and tech advancements. And what we really liked is your community-based approach to give law firms the tools to drive growth and manage risk intelligently, because community is a key tool. You had that saying about birds flocking, which escapes me, but the sense of lawyers leaning on other lawyers and wondering what the next person is doing because someone has likely gone through what I'm going through is so powerful. So when we heard about your community-first approach and our mission to make law firms more successful and grow intelligently and manage risk, we just saw a lot of overlap. And particularly for firms that don't have large risk and compliance teams, we're seeing the biggest uptake of the legal product. And so it just made a lot of sense to work with you and your member firms.
Yeah, no, and we're excited to have you on board. And on that topic, for the listeners who are already part of the LEGL Loop, and the listeners who hopefully later this year will become part of LEGL Loop when they open a firm, what is the exclusive, the offer that LEGL's making to our members?
Yes, so anyone who's a member of the Cell Life, please get in touch. There is going to be a link in the member portal. You will get a blanket 25% off all of our risk products, essentially everything we have discussed today. LEGL, I should note, is a completely usage-based product. So there is no lock-in in terms of time or cost. And I'm sure everyone out there is currently dealing with or has dealt with vendors who look to lock them in for 3-year contracts with minimum spend. We believe so much in our product that we do not do that. So you would come on board with us through the Cell Life, you get your discount, but there is no commitment to any minimum spends. And we're going to make sure that there is plenty of collateral in the Cell Life portal to help you feel comfortable. As simple as it is, I know it can be daunting bringing on a new tool. So there's plenty in the help center out there to get you on board with your legal journey.
No, that's great. And because I'm always thinking in marketing terms, I'll start sort of promoting that we have partnered with someone to make sure the Cell Life, as much as I'm a bit bullish, I do like the odd criminal, I got to say, because sometimes the government needs to be challenged. However, our lawyers are being as compliant as possible using all the technology. That's a ripper offer. The lesson I actually teach inside the app as part of our Core 4 course is make an offer people would feel silly saying no. There's no real risk to a lawyer, at least just signing up to have a feel of it all and then go, yeah, I should incorporate it into my business. And obviously I'll be saying, yeah, for reputation alone, that's going to protect you in the long run.
I like that you said there is no risk. We exist to reduce your risk. We are not here to add more risk onto your firms. So yes, please do get in touch. We would be more than happy to help you assess whether or not LEGL makes sense for your new firm.
Fantastic. Thanks, Robbie. I'm sure this won't be the last conversation we have.
Thank you, Lofty. Appreciate the time.